In the midst of the bustling city cafe adorned with festive lights and echoes of laughter, I, Anna Bennett, stood frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening, a brief escape from the loneliness that had become my constant companion since Michael, my husband, had become increasingly distant. But there, in the heart of cheer and celebration, my world came crashing down. Michael, my husband of 17 years, was on one knee, a small velvet box in hand, his eyes locked with those of a young woman, whose surprise was rapidly turning into delight. Lily, I would later learn, was her name. She was in her early 20s, her eyes sparkling with a youthfulness that I had long since felt fade within me. "Lily, will you marry me and make me the happiest man alive?" Michael's voice, once a sound of comfort, now cut through me like a knife. Her response, a giddy "yes," was drowned out by the applause of onlookers, charmed by this scene of supposed love and commitment. But to me, it was a spectacle of betrayal. With each step I took towards them, my mind raced back through the years of sacrifice, of raising our daughter Rachel, of the nights spent alone while Michael claimed to be working late. How could he? My thoughts were a whirlwind of betrayal, confusion, and a growing sense of fury. As I reached their table, the room seemed to spin around me. Michael's eyes met mine, widening in shock and confusion. Lily turned, her smile faltering as she took in my presence. "Michael, care to explain?" My voice was calm, but it carried an edge that made several nearby patrons turn their heads. "Anna? What? How?" Michael stammered, his face draining of color. "I could ask the same," I replied, my voice steady despite the chaos within. "Apparently I'm attending my own husband's engagement. Quite the turn of events, don't you think?" Lily's face turned from confusion to horror. "Your husband? Michael, you said." Her voice trailed off as the realization set in. The cafe, buzzing just moments ago, fell into a hush, the air thick with tension. "Let's not make a scene, Anna," Michael hissed, his eyes darting around the room. "A scene?" I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Oh, Michael, you made a scene the moment you decided to propose to another woman while still married to me." Rachel, who had followed me in disbelief, now stood by my side, her eyes blazing with anger. "Dad, how could you do this to us? To Mom?" Michael's gaze shifted between me and Rachel, his usual composed demeanor crumbling under the weight of his choices. "This isn't what it looks like," he began, but his words were empty, unconvincing. "Save it, Michael," I said, cutting him off. "You've made your choice, and now I'll make mine." Turning on my heel, I left the cafe, Rachel at my side, the echoes of whispered conversations filling the air behind us. The festive lights blurred as tears welled up in my eyes, but I held them back. This was not the end. It was the beginning of my fight, a fight for justice, for my dignity, for everything I had given up for a man who had so callously thrown it all away. The night air was crisp as I walked alongside Rachel, each step away from the cafe, a step into the past. Rachel, my daughter, was a mirror of the confusion and anger I felt, yet her presence was a comforting reminder of the strength I had garnered over the years. "Mom, how long has this been going on?" Rachel's voice trembled with a mix of anger and sorrow. I sighed, a mix of weariness and resolve in my breath. "I don't know, Rachel, but it doesn't matter. What matters is what we do now." The walk home was a journey through memories, a montage of the life I had built with Michael. We had met in college, two young souls with bright futures ahead. Michael was charming, ambitious, the kind of man who drew people to him with his charisma. I was smitten, and when he proposed, it felt like a fairy tale. But fairy tales don't tell you about the sacrifices, the compromises, the nights spent alone. When Rachel was born, I put my career on hold to be there for her, for our family. Michael's career in finance took off, and with it, his absence from home became more frequent. "I always thought he was just busy with work," I confessed to Rachel. But I guess I was just fooling myself. We reached home, a place that now felt more like a house of cards, fragile and ready to collapse. Inside, the walls echoed with the ghosts of laughter and love, now tainted by deception. I poured myself into being the perfect wife and mother, thinking it would be enough. But standing there in the silence of our living room, I realized how blind I had been. "Mom, we can't let him get away with this," Rachel said, determination in her eyes. "He has to pay for what he's done." Her words sparked a fire in me, a burning desire for retribution. "You're right, he will pay. We'll make sure of it. The following days were a blur of legal consultations and covert planning. Rachel was my rock, her youthful energy a stark contrast to my simmering rage. We gathered evidence, piecing together Michael's web of lies, bank statements, late-night calls, clandestine meetings. The truth was as clear as it was painful. But it wasn't just about proving his infidelity. It was about exposing him, showing the world the man he truly was. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the humiliation and pain he had caused me, to tear down the facade he had so carefully built. "Mom, look at this," Rachel said one evening, her laptop casting a glow on her determined face. "I think we've got him." On the screen were emails between Michael and Lily, their words a nauseating mix of affection and deceit. My heart pounded with a mixture of disgust and satisfaction. This was it, the key to our revenge. The plan was set. Michael's world was about to come crashing down, just as mine had in that cafe. But this time I would be the one holding the reins. This time I would be the one to deliver the final blow. In the heart of our home, now a war room of sorts, Rachel and I sat surrounded by papers and digital evidence. The air was thick with a mix of determination and cold anger. We were no longer just a betrayed wife and a disillusioned daughter. We were allies in a battle against deceit. "Mom, we need to expose him publicly," Rachel said, her eyes scanning through the emails we had unearthed. "Everyone should see Michael for who he truly is." I nodded in agreement, feeling a sense of empowerment amidst the chaos. "We'll do it at the company gala next week. It's perfect. His colleagues, friends, everyone who matters to him will be there." The gala was an annual event, a night of glitz and glamour, where Michael often basked in the limelight of his professional success. It was the ideal setting for our revelation. As we planned, I couldn't help but reflect on the irony. Michael, who had always been so cautious, so controlled, had slipped up. And now, his own arrogance was going to be his downfall. "We'll need proof, something irrefutable," I said, poring over the emails. "These emails are damning, but we need more." Rachel's network of friends proved invaluable. One of them, working at a tech startup, helped us enhance some blurry photos we had taken of Michael and Lily. The images now clearly showed them in compromising situations, evidence that was impossible to refute. But this wasn't just about proving his affair. It was about stripping him of his dignity, his reputation. I wanted him to feel exposed, vulnerable, just as I had felt in that cafe. A few days before the gala, Rachel and I received an invitation, a courtesy, no doubt, as Michael was unaware of our intentions. We RSVP'd, our plan firmly in place. The night of the gala arrived. Dressed elegantly, with a sense of purpose, we entered the venue. The atmosphere was electric, a sea of well-dressed elites mingling and laughing, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. Michael was there, the center of attention as always, but tonight his charisma would be his undoing. We waited, biding our time as the evening progressed. Finally, as Michael took the stage to deliver his speech, we made our move. Standing up, I interrupted him mid-sentence. "Michael, there's something everyone here needs to know," I announced, my voice steady and commanding. The room fell silent, all eyes on us. Michael's face turned from confusion to fear as he realized what was happening. "Anna, what are you doing?" he managed to choke out. "You've been living a lie, Michael," I said, holding up the photos for all to see. "This is the man you all admire, a cheater, a liar." The gasps and murmurs filled the room as the photos made their way through the crowd. Michael's face turned crimson, his usual composure shattered. Rachel stepped forward, her voice filled with a mix of sadness and disgust. "This is who our father really is. We thought you all should know the truth." Michael tried to speak, to salvage the situation, but it was futile. His colleagues, his friends, now looked at him with a mix of shock and disdain. As we left the gala, the sound of Michael's world crumbling behind us, I felt a bittersweet sense of justice. We had exposed him, shown the world his true colors. It was a hollow victory, but a victory nonetheless. The aftermath of the gala was like the quiet after a storm. News of Michael's infidelity spread like wildfire, tarnishing the image he had so meticulously built. The once respected man was now a subject of whispers and disdainful glances. But for Rachel and me, it was just the beginning. Sitting in our living room, now a sanctuary of our shared mission, we discussed our next steps. Michael's public humiliation was satisfying. but we needed to ensure he faced real consequences for his actions. "Mom, we should take this to court. He deserves to lose more than just his reputation," Rachel said, her voice laced with a resolve that mirrored my own. I nodded, feeling a mix of anger and determination. "We'll file for divorce and take everything we can. It's not just about the money, Rachel. It's about showing him he can't just use people and discard them." The divorce proceedings were swift, fueled by the evidence we had gathered. Michael's attempts to negotiate were feeble and desperate. He knew he stood no chance against the damning proof of his betrayal. In the courtroom, facing the judge, Michael was a shadow of the man he once was. His arrogance had evaporated, leaving behind a man who was finally realizing the magnitude of his mistakes. "You destroyed our family, Michael. You threw away everything we had for a fling," I said, my voice unwavering as I addressed him in court. Michael's eyes met mine, filled with a regret that was too little too late. "Anna, I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen," he pleaded. "Sorry doesn't change what you did. It doesn't erase the pain you caused," I replied coldly. The judge ruled in our favor, granting me a significant portion of Michael's assets and full custody of Rachel. It was a legal vindication of our ordeal, a slap in the face to the man who thought he could get away with shattering our lives. But our victory was bittersweet. As Rachel and I left the courtroom, the reality of our new life set in. We had won, but at the cost of the family we once had. The following weeks were a time of rebuilding. Rachel and I leaned on each other, finding strength in our shared experience. We were more than just mother and daughter now. We were survivors, warriors who had faced the ugliness of betrayal and emerged stronger. Michael's downfall continued. His career suffered as his professional network shunned him. Lily, the young woman who had been a catalyst in our drama, was nowhere to be seen, having quickly distanced herself from the scandal. One evening, as Rachel and I sat together, reflecting on our journey, she looked at me with a maturity far beyond her years. "Mom, we did what we had to do, but I hope one day we can move past this, find happiness again." I hugged her, feeling a surge of love and pride. "We will, Rachel. We've come through the worst. Now, it's time to look forward." Our path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. We would face it together as a family reshaped by adversity, but unbroken in spirit. In the months that followed, the world seemed to realign itself in a way I never expected. Michael's downfall was not just confined to our personal battle. It echoed through every aspect of his life. Karma, it seemed, had a long memory. I heard about his misfortunes through the grapevine, a fitting reversal for a man who had once thrived on his connections. His career, which he had valued over our family, was in shambles. Clients and colleagues distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with a man of his tarnished reputation. But the greatest blow came when I learned that his financial misdeeds at work had caught up with him. It wasn't just infidelity. Michael had been embezzling funds, a fact that emerged as his company conducted internal audits in the wake of the scandal. His facade of success had been built on lies and deceit, both personally and professionally. Rachel and I sat in our living room one evening, the news of Michael's arrest for embezzlement flashing across the TV screen. There was no joy in seeing the man I once loved being led away in handcuffs, but there was a sense of poetic justice. "Mom, do you think we went too far?" Rachel asked, her eyes fixed on the screen. I pondered her question, the weight of our actions settling in. "We exposed the truth, Rachel. His actions after that were his own doing." Michael's trial was a public spectacle, another layer of his fall from grace. He pled guilty, his voice barely audible as he accepted the charges against him. The court showed no leniency, sentencing him to several years in prison. News of Lily's involvement with other wealthy men also surfaced, her pattern of deception becoming public knowledge. She was the epitome of a gold digger, using her youth and charm to ensnare men like Michael. But unlike Michael, she seemed to evade any significant consequences, slipping away from the limelight as quickly as she had entered it. In the end, Michael's betrayal was a catalyst for change. Rachel and I emerged from the ordeal with a newfound resilience. We became involved in community work, supporting women who had faced similar betrayals. Our story, once a private agony, became a public testament to the strength of overcoming adversity. As the years passed, the sting of betrayal faded, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. Rachel grew into a strong, independent woman, her experiences shaping her into an empathetic and powerful advocate for others. As for me, I found solace in my work and in the small joys of life. The pain that Michael had inflicted was a scar, but it no longer defined me. I had rediscovered my own worth, my own identity beyond the shadow of my marriage. One quiet evening, Rachel and I sat on our porch, looking up at the stars. "You know, Mom, I think we've finally moved past it all," she said, her hand in mine. I smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "Yes, we have. We've come out stronger, and that's all that matters." Our journey had been one of pain and retribution, but it had led us to a place of empowerment and peace. Michael's fate was his own making, a result of choices that he alone was responsible for. And while our revenge had set it all in motion, our true victory was in rising above the chaos, finding a new path forward. The years that followed reshaped our lives in ways I could never have imagined. Rachel and I had not only survived the storm, but emerged from it with a newfound sense of purpose. We had transformed our pain into a force for good, a beacon for others who had suffered similar fates. One evening, as we gathered in our living room, now filled with warmth and laughter, a news report caught our attention. It was about Michael, but this time, it wasn't about his misdeeds. He had been released from prison, a broken man who had served his time. "Mom, do you think he's changed?" Rachel asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and skepticism. I looked at the screen, seeing the man I once knew so well, now aged and humbled by his experiences. "People can change, Rachel, but it's his path to walk, not ours." Our journey had taught us that forgiveness wasn't about absolving others of their wrongs, but about freeing ourselves from the chains of anger and bitterness. We had let go, not for Michael's sake, but for our own peace. In the time since Michael's downfall, Rachel had become a prominent advocate for women's rights, her voice resonating with those who had been silenced by their own personal tragedies. Her strength and compassion were a source of immense pride for me. As for me, I had found joy in simple pleasures and new ventures. I started a small business, something I had always dreamt of but never pursued. It was liberating, the feeling of creating something of my own, something untainted by my past. One day, a surprise visitor arrived at our doorstep. It was Michael. He looked older, warier, but there was a sincerity in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. "Anna, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, truly sorry, for all the pain I caused you and Rachel," he said, his voice tinged with regret. Rachel and I exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between us. "We've moved on, Michael," I said, my voice calm and devoid of any malice. "We hope you find peace in your own journey." As he left, I felt a sense of closure, a final chapter in a long and tumultuous story. Our lives had diverged onto different paths that were never meant to converge again. In the years that followed, Rachel's advocacy work flourished and my business thrived. We had turned our experience into a catalyst for growth and change, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. Sitting in my garden one sunny afternoon, watching the butterflies flit among the flowers, I reflected on our journey. The pain, the betrayal, the revenge, it had all led to this moment of tranquility, a life rebuilt on our own terms. "Mom, look how far we've come," Rachel said, joining me with a warm smile. "Yes, we have," I replied, feeling a deep sense of contentment. We found our way back to happiness on our own terms. Our story was one of many twists and turns of darkness and light. But as I sat there, basking in the peace of our new life, I knew one thing for certain. Out of the ashes of our past we had risen, stronger and more united than ever before.